Ash, is that you?
Yes.
Stupid computer updates, isn't that right, Jamie?
Oh my gosh, it's going on forever. I don't know if I'll get in at all today.
Hey, Dan.
You did not hear the giant crash that I just, unleashed when I lifted my hand. It was like,
What happened?
my hand hit my phone, which knocked off the desk onto the desk and then immediately tumbled to the floor. So, yeah, good thing it's in a protective case. But happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday to you. Morning, Andrea.
Morning.
You have different background. You're not in front of your wallpaper.
I'm like George.
Oh, nice.
I love that wallpaper in
day.
your house so much. Every meeting,
Thank you.
like I want that wallpaper.
It's Rifle Paper Company. Peel and
Oh,
stick.
it's so good. I love
pretty
that
easy.
wallpaper is coming back in
I know.
fashion. It's so good.
Me too.
It's because nobody can remember how much of a pain in the ass it is to remove it.
Yeah.
No, the peel and stick stuff is really easy to remove and it doesn't damage the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's good for a rental apartment.
Oh, cool. I'm glad that we've advanced. So Amy, I believe that I'm waiting for Bob, and Paul, but we have a quorum. But I don't know if we want to give another moment or two.
Yeah, give it one more moment. And good morning, everybody.
And while we're waiting, we can embarrass our new employee, Rich, who hasn't turned on his camera. Probably didn't know that he was going to be participating, and now I'm calling him out. And so we hired Rich to work in our finance department because we thought that having somebody named Rich in our finance department would be good luck.
And funny.
Yep. And so welcome, Rich.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Clayton.
Welcome. And I think
Hi,
that's
everyone.
a fabulous way to hire somebody as well.
It makes sense to me, if you think about it, just, linguistically.
We only use the best criteria when selecting our candidates, so.
Yep. And I do need to let you know, Amy, that today's meeting is kind of like our retreat, and that it has hurdles and bumps. And Sharon is sick today and is unable to join us for our discussion, and which may be okay, because I'm beginning to think that the retreat is cursed. But
Fabulous. Well, that's what we're here to do, right? We can talk through things in this environment and see what we can salvage. And so why don't we stop notifications? Why don't we go ahead and get started with the three of us that are here, and then we can hopefully welcome others into the mix. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's 11:03. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
yes, that it will only be me and not Sharon for that discussion item.
Okay. Any additional? Okay, hearing none, we will go forward. Are there any folks, any public folks, any folks from the public? There we go. Let's get the words in the right order. Who would like to make a comment at the moment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right ahead to the committee minutes from June 9th. Anybody want to make a motion to accept them or offer any adjustments?
We'll need Austin or Andrea to raise their
Yeah,
hand.
I'll move that we accept the minutes.
Thanks, Austin.
I was not at the meeting, so
Do I get to second? Can I second stuff? What are the rules?
You can. I think you can even, actually, you can do, I think you could do the motion even if you weren't at the meeting, because the motion is just to get to a voting point.
All right, we have
okay, well, I'll second then.
an arm twisted second. No, just kidding. It's second. Any further discussions on the minutes? They were pretty straightforward. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye for me.
Aye.
Austin.
Do I have to
Any
abstain
nays?
from this one? I have no idea.
I actually don't know the rules, but there's 3 of us here, so 2 ayes and even an abstention, they still pass, I believe. So that
Cool.
formality, that hurdle is hurdled. All right, so now we get into the big conversation. And just to kick it off, Andrea knows a lot about this also, as much as I do. But Clayton suggested a kind of a quick retreat where we could get together and really start rolling up our sleeves and planning for the transitions of rural to RCT and TVT. Thought it would be a good idea to kind of lay out those the steps needed, the sticky points that we need to address, the feelings, and all of that, and then big plans got whittled down to smaller plans, and then I'll toss it over to Clayton, kind of pick it up from there.
Yeah. And so to kind of provide the genesis of my thinking here, and apologies for folks who have heard it before. I just noticed that there was the leadership committee meeting that we had last month that was right after the decision from TVT's decision to move forward. It seemed very clear to me that there was a lot of concerns that Bob had about what was going to be happening in Grand Isle, and now that things were moving forward, there was I think my impression was he wanted to be heard, and I sort of got the same impression from Catherine with the discussion that we had at the board meeting. And separate from that, I've noticed that I think that, we've gone from the, hey, I just want there to be a decision to, hey, I just want this transfer to be over. And, and me having some worries about continuity of operations for the coming year. My knee-jerk reaction was to be like, hey, let's get everybody together in a room. And let's, because I'm from a human services world, and whenever something's happened, you bring everybody together and you sing Kumbaya together until everybody either gives up or is on board. And but in talking with our friends at RCT and TVT, they were kind of like, hey, our transfer stuff is actually happening pretty good, and we're meeting with folks on the ground, and that's going good. And we're not sure, like an environment like this is actually, going to help push things forward. And so with that, we said, okay, well, why don't we, sort of reconsider and maybe have just an internal retreat. And as I'm trying to figure out now why my monitor keeps turning off, I'm just going to have to accept that this monitor hates me. Hello, turn back on. Thank you. And now I'll have to push you over here, which means that I'm not going to be able to see if I can. There. I'm sorry about my technical difficulties. And so, so anyway, that brings us to, let's have an internal, type discussion. And my first thoughts were that, again, I wanted to give space for, for Catherine and Bob. Let's go through all of the inventory of the things that are on their mind. We heard from Catherine that she wants to make sure that, rural commissioners still have a voice with GMT governance. And so it just seems like there's this list of things that we need to, start creating for us to, the sort of outstanding issues. And And I think that if by giving folks, an opportunity to speak them, and then for us to like sort of put them on a flip chart and then, start tracking them, that things will be better. So that's sort of where we, have been contemplating just a shortened day, just GMT management team and GMT commissioners. And I'll also have to say that one of the things that I'm also thinking is that originally I was like, you know what, our urban staff should just, like kind of be the flies on the wall, that you're just kind of watching and seeing how things go, maybe help them empathize a little bit with how things are going for their rural staff and help make the transition better. But one of the things that I started noticing is that I think that our urban staff are also feeling anxiety about, hey, my job's going to be very different next year. And so we have some people who are in that category. And then we have other people who are like, yeah, my job's going to be exactly the same, so it doesn't impact me at all. And so that means that here we're 2 weeks out from when we should potentially have this retreat, and I'm not even sure if I've gotten it narrowed down what our focus should be. And so I'm just kind of wondering if maybe we should delay. Get your thoughts, Amy and Andrea, about whether we want to proceed, with a partial like planned. I don't want to create, busy work that's not necessary. So I would only want to do this if we feel that it's really going to be worth the effort. Because the other thing that I'm looking at is that we have a really light meeting next week, and we could probably devote, 45 minutes to an hour during our normal meeting time if we wanted to do some of this during our normal meeting. So I'm coming to you disheveled and, not as well organized and with the vision that I had hoped to have at this point. And we could figure out what makes sense.
But my first thought is, you had a vision, and it is shifting, but not because of your vision. So it doesn't feel like you are unprepared. It just feels like things are moving. And I don't have an initial thought. I love Austin and Andrea if you had initial thoughts. Andrea and I have kind of been a little bit more involved in this conversation, Austin, and so you were a little bit removed. It would be kind of interesting to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, I mean, feel like I'm hectic and all over the map these days, so I'm never interested in meetings that I'm not sure are gonna yield much. That said, I do feel like we're kind of overdue to be in the same place physically and catch up a bit. And it's a group that I've always felt like when we've gotten together, we needed just kind of like excess time because everything either in a good way takes longer or we just kind of get the creative juices flowing. So we have the time on the calendar, might want to make use of it, but maybe not all of it.
Yeah, I agree that I think it's been a while since we were all face to face, and we're entering a time when there's a lot of changes coming. So I think there's value in just being in the same room. I also want to recognize Clayton, the effort and intentionality put into this, even though it's shifting, but just the sort of recognizing that it's a time of great change, and there's going to be a lot of sort of just like the kind of interest in creating a space where people can talk about that change. I appreciate.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I just wanted to say, Clayton and we haven't had a chance to chat since you sent out the message over the weekend that you had been thinking about the urban piece. And I'm curious if folks think by having urban staff that is going to remain with the urban be at the retreat talking about what their job looks like, does that kind of start? We've had this concern all along, right, about how the urban mission, like we don't want to make it seem like we're jumping ahead. Like we want to have a pause and recognize that like the rural staff is going through something. We'll all go through the transition, but like they have a lot of uncertainty on the other side. And I feel like if we have this become like an urban rural, it's going to turn into like, what's the urban mission? And then we kind of detract from the original spirit of this retreat, which was to, have the graceful transition conversation.
I think that's my thought also, right? I think there's value. To have, because I think this is a big change and I want it to go as smoothly as possible. Having us get together with just, okay, what needs to happen for the transition? What are the decision points? What's the timeline? What do we do about these pieces, right? So, Bob raised a really good point, is that if Grand Isle route remains urban, is Grand Isle urban? Right? Like it's kind of a funky little spot, right? And the same with Richford. So I think there are some pieces that really need to be kind of, how do we handle those things? And it would be nice to be together in one room to kind of talk about that. So perhaps it makes sense for this to be a board retreat instead of a everybody retreat. Because I don't want to, I know that there's the simplification of what's going to happen in the urban area, right? Where attention is focused and the grants and all those kinds of things go away. But there still isn't enough money for the urban, and we're still cutting routes. And that's an impact. And it is not something cheerful, understated, right? Like I think this doesn't solve urban's challenges. It just allows urban to focus more clearly on its challenges. So I think it allows us to really give us some time to think about how we separate smoothly and with intentionality and iron out or try to prepare for, things that need to be ironed out. But perhaps it doesn't need to be as long. I think it would just be easier to do in a retreat than in a 45-minute discussion in a board meeting when we also conceivably have to talk about negotiations with the union negotiations. Oh, goodness, Monday morning. And so other things. I think this gives us some space to really focus on that. I'm rambling. Go ahead, Dan.
I'll just two things I want to mention from VTrans's perspective. I don't know if Michelle's email, Clayton, whether you shared it with this leadership group or not. VTrans does really want this larger meeting to occur as well. Whether the initial, agenda and having everyone come together and having Jim and Caleb and the urban and the rural and just sort of like having this day, we totally will let you operate any way you see fit, but we do want to also have this larger discussion and bring in Caleb and Jim. And if it, so sometime later this summer would also be a touch point that VTrans would want us to also plan for. So just want to put that on the radar, right? That I don't want this to be the only time that we sort of have this coming together of the board, coming together of the staff for GMT. VTrans, is very interested in listening and learning. And then just on that end, as you discuss routes that go into the rural sections, it's super important to have those agencies that might operate those routes in the future also be involved. Because just saying wholesalely, we're going to get rid of all the commuter routes, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow without having those planners in the room to just sort of think about that as well. And we've been sort of having Stephen Fauble lead us through those discussions. And I don't know if you were leaning towards that, Amy. I can sort of see a a facial expression of worry on your face.
Please don't get rid of the commuter routes.
I know, exactly. And that's what VTrans is really, like we want to be super thoughtful about everything, right? And so if it means, that for a period of time, some routes are operated in urban and the plan is to switch them to rural, because that's what the consensus is, we all want to be at the table to have those discussions. And I don't think we have answers for Bob and Catherine yet. And so we think we know what we want to do, but we haven't had the discussion yet. And so, yeah.
Clayton, did you want to add?
Oh, just appreciate Dan throwing it out there that Michelle does like the idea of us, late summer, early fall, gathering, and I think that will be, important for the process. Absolutely. And I think that you're, sort of hitting the nail on the head on perhaps when it comes to service, the biggest question, because what I think is going to be challenging is having, sort of the urban transit agency determine what is the appropriate amount of connection to Washington and Franklin County. And I think that that's something that probably needs to be a decision, made beyond GMT, because otherwise we're going to put us in conflict every year with, rural constituencies who want the urban agency to, provide more service to them. But so yeah, that's all I'd have to say.
Just to further explain my expression, because we all know I have no poker face. The Franklin Grand Isle community might consider those Alberg Richford routes serving the Franklin Grand Isle community within itself more than as a connection to Chittenden County. So it might consider it more of a local route than a commuter route, even though it serves both. So I think no one wants to get rid of those. But we just, so that there was a conversation. So, the question then is, TVT and RCT weren't ready to meet with all of us right now. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, and I think that they were also just concerned about, creating an environment where they're going to be asked questions that are going to be really difficult for them to answer, at this point, and that they didn't want, to be super cautious with how they answered, especially if some pay and benefits questions come up, which, I suspect that they would, and I think also to Caleb and Jim's points is that they've, they have been meeting with staff locally at both of the locations. And I think from their perspective, it's going well. And so from where they sit, I think that they're not seeing the need for, to gather the way, the way I saw it.
So I think I'm hearing three things. One, I think maybe there's a benefit to the board members getting together and saying, what do we need to plan out? What decisions do we need to do? How can we make this smoothly, both for governance and what issues can we raise, right, that we're aware of that we can then share with our partners, whether it's GMT, TVT, or RCT, right? So I think there's the opportunity for us to get together and just put it all out there. We do work well. I agree with Austin. There's that synergy that comes when you're in a room. I don't then know how to reconvene us, per Dan's request, right? We will have these kind of, perhaps we'll come up with a plan for decisions or process or timeline. But if, VTrans really wants this bigger meeting, but partners aren't quite ready, I don't know how to help with that or to make that happen. So I'm going to leave that as a kind of, I don't know how to do that.
And I think that that's probably something that I could work out with the folks at VTrans and, in the coming weeks. And then, unlike our sort of rush to get together this time, we'll have a couple months to really be thoughtful about this is, the agenda and here are the areas that we're going to touch upon and really, curated, I think, a bit better.
And perhaps this gives us time, if our board, our current existing board, can come up with some issues or timelines, we can share that and make sure that folks are in the know for later, so that we don't lose too much time if something needs to be acted on.
Yeah.
We haven't been, 6 months down the road.
And so if I really like the idea of a sort of a board-focused retreat, and I will also then take the opportunity to do things, at my level to try to address staff concerns, and so I don't think that there's any, problem with doing that. The question that I would have is that do we want to have our regularly scheduled board meeting next Tuesday and then an in-person, gathering? Do we want to try to, since we do have a light agenda, do we want to have the board meeting action items at the beginning of that in-person retreat, so that we're not asking people to join twice?
It sounds like it would make sense to roll those together. If we had a very long agenda for the board meeting for the month, I could see doing 2 different meetings, but as it is, I think combining them makes sense.
I agree. And right now it's 9 to 3, so we could certainly shorten that. I just want to make sure that there weren't that we definitely will have a quorum for the July 21st before we jettison the 7:30. Is this your ulterior motive, to jettison the 7:30 meeting, Clayton?
Absolutely. I figured out a way, at least for 1 month, that I don't have to get up early on that day. So I think that if we did something where just the regular board meeting was 9 to 9:45-ish, then that would give us 2 full hours before we break for lunch, and then after lunch people go their ways, and I think that would be a nice extended time for everybody on the board to let them know what they're worried about, and start inventorying those things. And I think that would be somewhat, that'd be pretty easy for us to create the event, and easy for you all to go through it.
Okay. Any final thoughts, requests, ifs, ands, or buts?
And we'll still have it at Main Street Landing because we won't get our deposit back, so we'll have the nice view, and it'll be very spacious for us now. And then I will send out a message this afternoon letting folks know that that we won't be having next week's board meeting, that we can go ahead and cancel the announcement for that and do a new announcement for the retreat. Then let's see what I was thinking. Oh, and one of the things that I can do is make sure that we poll who can attend, and if we find that we'll have a quorum issue, then we can get proxies.
Sounds good.
Then the only 2 agenda items will be asking the board to approve the ending of fare free service on the number 11, which we are doing public meeting on Wednesday. And then the other item is delegation of authority for Amy and Paul to do our fuel bid contract, like we did last year, when we have to do those within a few hours of the bid.
And I think board leadership.
Oh yeah, elections, which is our next topic here.
Yep. I think Austin wants back in as chair. He said so. Not in so many words.
I heard that he was upset that that this whole baby thing was a lot easier than everybody said, and yeah.
All right. So we have a plan. When you're polling to make sure that we have folks that can come, let's triple check our rural commissioners to make sure that they can be there.
Tasha can't be there that day, but Alec, her alternate, will be there.
Okay. All right. Going once, going twice. Moving on to board officer elections. We have completed our first year with Amy as chair and Andrea as vice chair and Paul as treasurer. We've lost Phil as secretary. And Bob is our committee member at large, and Austin is our immediate past chair. So those are the rules. So we have a vacancy, at least one. So we need to consider how to fill the secretary position, which doesn't have any official secretarial roles at this point, but also how do we plan for the future if we want to, try to do that. I do know someone who was interested in being secretary.
I think Susan at the last meeting volunteered.
Yes.
If I remember that right. Yep. The only thing that I was going to bring up that may be a complication, and I'm not really sure we should, kind of chase this type of balance, is that then when you look at our officers, we would have Bob be the only, sort of representative of rural during this year, and I don't know if. But that would then require either Catherine, Christian, or Tasha to step into the secretary role, which I'm not sure that they would really, want to do. But I do just want to note, and although Amy, you're kind of, straddling in both sides, since your professional and your personal are, bridge that. But
I was going to offer that. I really do know a whole lot more about transportation in Franklin and Grand Isle than I do in Chittenden County. So I represent Williston, but am on the side or not on the side coordinating meetings in Franklin and Grand Isle so that we can find additional transportation solutions for the challenges here. So I do work closely with Catherine in that realm. So if they're comfortable with me straddling, I'm happy to really continue to try to represent both.
And so
Austin, Andrea, thoughts? Oh, sorry, Clayton, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things for as to add to the discussion is just that, what the agenda should look like on the 21st. And if that's just a slate of officers, to be voted in, then that's what I'll have on the agenda, or if you wanted them individually. But I think we've traditionally done a slate. Yeah,
I'm fine with the slate. And the only other thing I would say is, as I absolutely will not be doing a third year, right? It's just those 1 year, and then you extend it for 1 year, and then you are no longer the chair, which is good for everybody. But is there any steps that we want to take to identify somebody who would then move into the vice chair, and assuming Andrea wants to move into the chair? So if there's anybody that we want to be sure that we're bringing into the fold of leadership so that they can get their feet wet and be ready to move. We haven't traditionally done that, but perhaps it's helpful.
I think it's worth thinking about making sure that we have leadership representation from the finance committee. Just kind of keeping that in mind as an area of where the finance committee should definitely, someone who has a deep knowledge of finance should definitely be.
And Susan is on the finance committee, so that connection is there.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Well, also we're never allowing Paul to step off leadership.
Right.
So, and he chairs finance.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and when I had rearranged committees and committee assignments, I kind of did talk to people about their intentions to stay with the board long term and move into more leadership. So I did stack folks who are really interested in that more heavily in finance, just because that was a perspective that I think Bonnie and everyone else had shared with me before I jumped into leadership. So Susan's certainly, well prepared for jumping on the leadership committee.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments about our leadership or officer slate? Okay. Should I confirm with Susan that we're going to put her name on there? Probably that would be a kind thing to do. I got that. Okay. Anything else? Any commissioner comments? I think that's where we are. Okay. Going once. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All right. Speediest leadership meeting ever. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. And we are adjourned on this hot and steamy, beautiful summer day. I wish you all the best. And Clayton, I'll be in touch and we'll figure out the details.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.